Good morning, everybody. This is Getting Inside the Right Male Mind with Benjamin and Lisa Shield.
Good morning.
Good morning. We are so happy to see you. I do these broadcasts every Sunday morning. And as I've said before, one of the main reasons I'm recording these is because I love being able to get inside this man's mind. He is the most heartfelt, genuine, grateful, forgiving, masculine man I have ever known. And I know for a fact that there are very few men out there who could articulate the things that Benjamin articulates in the way he articulates them. Does that count as alliteration if you use the same word 3 times? So that's one of the reasons that I do this. But there's another reason, and I wanted to share that with you all today because I think it's really important. One of the things I realized when I was dating was that there was this being sitting across from me, another human being who has a very different journey in life than I do. He is built differently. He has a completely different biochemical makeup. I mean, just like I could almost look at we speak the same language, but I can look at another being, a dog, a cat, or whatever, and you can't underestimate the different journeys that men and women go through in life. I think we have to stop and really, take a deep breath and realize that we as women, or I'll speak for myself, I was bringing in so many cliches and assumptions and ridiculous notions that I'd collected over the years about who men are. And I woke up one day and I said to myself, if I am going to have the kind of deep, loving, lasting relationship with a real man, then I have to really open my heart to him and want to get to know him. And so that's also what these talks are about. Helping you get inside the heart and mind of a real man who, for me, represents everything that is good about being a man. So that's why I wanted to share that. And I also just wanted to say, babe, it was so much fun hanging out with you yesterday. Yeah. We moved to Santa Fe in the middle of the pandemic, and Benjamin and I were going furniture shopping. And Santa Fe is like this incredibly small town, right, babe? And there's like some cool stuff here. And there's some fun things to do. Somehow, we always find great ways to spend our time together. So let's spend some time together talking about what goes on in your mind. Okay, so we thought today, this came up, we have an absolutely extraordinary mastermind group. And there are about 6 highly dedicated women in that group. They are so dedicated, not just to finding a partner, but to finding a relationship, with the depth and richness that Benjamin and I have. So they work with us in this group, and we keep in contact. We're monitoring what they're doing all the time, and they can reach out to us if they just want to know how to respond to a text in the moment or as quickly as we can get back to them. But these women are amazing. And one of the women went on a date with a guy who she was very excited about. He was I don't know much about the guy, but I know that he was recently or is in the process of getting divorced. And she reached out to us and wanted to know what she should do here. Should she continue to date him? Is this, just going to get her emotionally involved again with another unavailable man? And so I thought it would be great to talk about dating men who are getting divorced, recently widowed, or even or men who are recently out of a relationship. And this is very different for men than women. So, babe, take it away.
Well, I think the bottom line is that there's no one size that fits all. There could be a man who has been recently divorced, and he could either still be attached to his ex-wife or despise her, but still deeply linked. He could have been in a marriage that technically or that ended emotionally long before the divorce. And so that there was already the detachment. They could have been like two roommates living in the same house.
Yeah. I want to ask you, before we actually delve into this, I think it's an important question. What is it like for a man? I know you've gone through this. We've all gone through breakups and losses of relationships that we had a lot of hope for that fell apart with people that we may have really loved. What is it like for you as a man when you have gone through, or when men go through, if you're going to speak for all of them, a breakup with somebody that he really, really cared deeply about?
Well, if that's a situation where the breakup was mostly her idea, or it just didn't work, that he's still emotionally attached and has deep memories and he may still feel committed in some ways. It's heartbreaking. There's a mourning period, and particularly if it's a marriage that people promise to be together with for the rest of their lives, and it didn't work, a man could feel like a failure, and he could go through a long, long mourning period. I remember my first marriage ended. I mean, this was 40 years ago, but it was my first marriage, and I thought it would last forever, and I made that commitment, and I felt I was doing pretty well, and I remember I was in Geneva, Switzerland, and I went to a movie that had English, that was in English, and it was just this Burt Reynolds cop movie. It had nothing to do with marriage or relationship. And I just remember being in the theater, sitting by myself and sobbing.
Oh,
and it had nothing to do with, but I think that it took a while to process, and it was heartbreaking. And it wasn't that we left angry with each other, it just was something that we went our own separate ways.
Yeah.
But for other men, if the marriage soured and there may have been a lack of sexual intimacy for quite a while, when he comes out of the marriage, he may have lost his sexual confidence.
Oh, God.
So that
what is that like for a man?
Well, he may be reluctant he may really want to be in a relationship, but fearful that if he's not able to perform or perform well, or feel that he may be rejected or criticized with his lovemaking, that is devastating to a man. I mean, that shame that he may feel.
And I think something women don't really realize is how, men can pursue us, right? They can be on the chase, and that's one mindset, just the chase and the conquering a woman. And I think many women think that that's what sex is for a man, like it's a conquest and whatever. But once you're in a relationship, there are so many emotional elements to sex for men.
Yeah.
It's not just a conquest thing. It's not throw you up against the door or, toss everything off the kitchen counter and whatever and make wild, passionate love. You can't even do that if you don't feel emotionally safe with that woman.
Right.
after you're in the relationship.
Right. Particularly as we get into our middle ages and beyond, very much the case. And there's also the opposite, where if a man has had a marriage that has been sexless for a while, that he may want to, as soon as he feels free free at last, that he wants to sow his wild oats, and he'll just, really want to be in a relationship, maybe want to be in a monogamous relationship, and have the ambivalence of really wanting to be with as many women as possible. Something that maybe he'd been in a long-term marriage, and he never really had the experience with a lot of other women, and this is his chance. So there's a lot of ambivalence, whether it's a lack of sexual confidence or wanting to, really go out and have experiences. There's a lot of ambivalence, and unfortunately, there are two victims: the women that he's seeing, and himself.
Yeah.
Because he never lands on what he really wants, and it's, he may really want, to recreate a wonderful relationship, or even create one if he never had one in the beginning, if the relationship wasn't satisfying. And at the same time, he may not want to be in a relationship. And so he's kind of a hot mess. I think that's really the common denominator, is that however a man leaves, whether he's widowed, whether he's divorced from and it's his decision or her decision, or, any scenario, a man leaving a long-term relationship, or a relationship that has been passionate, either passionate with good emotions or passionate with angry emotions, bitter emotions, resentment, he leaves just like a marble that hasn't found its groove.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I think as we're talking, as women, we suffer so much in relationships and heartbreak and feeling like men don't show up for us, right? That they're not there for us and giving us what we need. But it's the same for men. They're not getting what they need from us very often, emotionally, whatever. But how we respond, let's get to that part of the discussion. Once we come out of these broken relationships or losses, right? Even as a widower, right? So let's talk about a woman entering into a relationship with a man who is recently divorced or widowed or divorced, who's going through separation of some kind.
Well, first, the man may deeply want connection, and in doing so, his words may be ahead of his intention.
Wow.
So with all of his heart, he may be with a woman and he'd say, "Oh, this woman is so different from my ex-wife," or, widowed wife, deceased wife, or so much like her, either one, that he may make these proclamations like, "I've never met a woman like you. You're amazing." And his words may be way ahead of what his unconscious intentions are.
So he's saying the words, and he may even really mean them in that moment, but underneath, he hasn't processed.
Yeah, and it's usually, my sense, it's not something that's conscious, that he's not consciously making these proclamations and promises and extreme compliments with the idea of hurting someone.
And there may even be relief just in meeting a woman
Yeah.
who you feel a connection with. It's like, God, I was feeling like such a loser and a failure, but no,
Yeah.
you know.
So what happens is that he becomes deeply connected,
Very-
making all these, projections and early on, and the woman just like said, "Oh my gosh, this guy is ready for a relationship." And then, as things get more intense, as things get closer, he may realize that, wait a minute, I don't want to get, I just got out of a relationship
Yeah.
or a long-term marriage or that I don't even know what I want or who I want. And so he may pull back, and what would be considered like an avoidant personality, that he's love bombing the woman, and she's just like, wow, this is the guy. I finally found my guy. And then as she approaches him, he suddenly emotionally sobers up and pulls away.
Wow.
And she can't figure out what just happened. So she blames herself. She's trying to strategize how to get him back in.
Yep.
And I would say it would be the extremely rare case that they actually get together. And so things go very quickly. Often when a man gets divorced, or separated or whatever it may be, widowed, and he may move very quickly. And it's up to the woman to slow the roll down, to really, really slow the relationship down and realize that, wait a minute, I don't really know this guy. He doesn't really know me. He may be seeing me through the lens of his his former relationship, and comparing me and either wanting something the same or something totally different. But he may not be seeing the woman. He may be seeing something through a filtered lens where he doesn't really see her. And the relationship is in the forefront, and the person who he's sitting across the table from at a Starbucks is in the background. It's like a single lens reflex camera where you could adjust what's in the foreground, what's in the background. For someone who's recently separated for whatever reason, divorced, widowed, that he's still focused on that prior relationship. It's still raw. It's still there. There's still pain or longing. And so that the person who he's dating that focus is a bit in the background compared to, this emotional upset.
Wow. And men internalize their feelings.
Yeah. I mean, it's difficult it's difficult for a man to speak about his feelings, but it's also difficult for a man to understand his feelings. So a man may feel very clear that, oh my God, this is the woman, on the first date, oh my God, we had so much fun. And it was just like, I wasn't able to joke with my ex, and now, we're having so much fun. And he just dives into it. And, but he doesn't really understand his feelings. He hasn't really processed. And even if a man has had a lot of psychological work, a lot of therapy, a lot of workshops, a lot of self-help books, the pain is still there. The longing is still there. All those things don't take it away. It may help him get over it sooner. And in some ways, I don't know if we ever get over a breakup or a separation, a loss. It may always be there.
Yeah. Yep. The other thing is for a man to admit, like, here he's failed. He feels he's failed him, his kids, his wife, himself, his parents, whatever. And then to have to talk about it is
Right. Right.
to
Exactly.
like to sit there and rehash it and admit it and have to process it is so, I mean, women do that. But, and I think you went to therapy, I know, for years, and you
Mhm.
did do that. You
Mhm.
really, it's amazing. I can't even imagine what you, I would have liked to have been in a fly on the wall. Actually, I never thought about that.
Well, I think for a man to go through therapy after a breakup and to do it successfully, it's not, it's partially talking about the relationship and the majority talking about himself, and understanding himself. So, I think the relationship isn't difficult to process, to understand,
Hmm.
but the causes of the underlying causes of um, and the failures in the relationship. And a man recently separated, again for whatever reason, may be afraid to repeat the same failures again because he doesn't have new tools, he doesn't have new insights. So he's think as he really wants the relationship, he gets closer and closer, and then as he gets close and the woman gets close, he says, "Well, I don't want this again. I just got through this, and alive."
Well, and the trap for the thing that's a trap for a lot of women is that we are waiting for a man with that much passion and a guy to be that passionate and enthusiastic. And what we don't realize is that it's not in a lot of ways about us. It's just this man experiencing connection again and whatever, but they're projecting a lot on us,
Oh,
and then we're drinking it in.
yeah.
We're taking it in because there's this guy. And sometimes these are really choice guys. They're handsome, whatever, they're accomplished, but they're also deeply wounded. And I think it's very, very important to know that anybody, like even if it worked out and you did wind up together, which can happen, right? Somebody
Mm-hmm.
coming out of a divorce, we have a client who we adore, and she met a guy who was coming out of a divorce, but that guy had never really been in love with his wife.
Mm-hmm.
They got pregnant, I think, very young. He did the right thing, the honorable thing, and married her. And then they had two more kids together, and they were great parents, but they were never in love. So when he got out of that marriage and he met our client, um, he fell in love. He said, I thought I was going to, experience the world. And he said, I think I found my world.
Mm-hmm.
So that happened very quickly, but it's almost as if he had wanted that his whole life. He
Yeah.
had, he didn't need, he knew it when he found it with her.
Yeah, and we talk about the dangers of getting together with a divorced man, but there are also some advantages. You
Yeah.
know, there's I've been married before,
Hmm.
and I've been married twice before. Once when I was fairly young, and then a brief marriage that was long distance. We didn't really get to know each other beforehand, and if I didn't have those experiences, I wouldn't have what you and I have for this almost 20 years, which has been bliss. But the the first marriage ended, we just went our separate ways. She's a soap opera actress, now retired, but for about 40 years on a soap. And we just had different lifestyles and different goals. The second, we just didn't, it was very brief. She lived in another state. We saw each other every other weekend. I'd fly out there, and or she'd come out here, and we didn't really. You can't really get to know someone ideally, because it could be like a honeymoon um, uh, phase each time you see the person. Now it's different with Zoom, and you could really have those intimate conversations, almost face to face, but on the computer. But back then, and it was a argumentative. It was just an unhappy couple years. Fortunately, it was brief. But it helped me set boundaries. It helped me understand what I want and what I didn't want. And so by the time that I was ready to really seriously look for a partner, and there was that time of, being in the desert, after that last divorce, of, dating women, having ambivalence, having sexual encounters that meant less to me than it did to the other person. you know, because I didn't realize how people get attached with sexual intimacy.
Oh.
And so, looking back, I look back, with some horror and some shame, and just saying, wow, why didn't I see that? But I could see, even I consider myself to be I try to be a good person. And I could see the mistakes and the trail of a short trail, but of heartaches that I may have left just because I wasn't fully grounded.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have my feet fully on the ground.
Well, that's traumatic. It is traumatic coming out of a relationship that's felt like a battlefield.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and the wounding just isn't from the separation. The wounding could happen in the relationship itself.
Well, a lot of it does.
Yeah, of course. And then the separation is that much more acrimonious. But getting back to the advantages of if a man has been in a relationship perhaps for years and his wife passed, he may have, really be looking for a substantial. He's learned how to be a good partner. A man may have divorced and have kids, and the single woman may have kids as well, and he could have been not a great husband or a partner, but a great father, and learned what he wanted and didn't want as a partner,
Mm-hmm.
and is ready for a different type of relationship.
Yeah. Wow. As I'm sitting here and I'm listening to you talk, I was reflecting on the course that you and I are teaching, our 12-week program that we do with women. And I was playing out in my mind how we can sit here and guess at whether or not a man would be ready or not coming out of all of these different circumstances. And there's something a little miraculous about the course that we're teaching, because what it does is it literally gives women the ability to go out into the dating world and date multiple people and not jump into anything with anyone. And if women follow what's in my program or our program, what is so incredible is we don't know. We can sit here and talk about where these men are, what they go through and where they may be. But our program shows these women how to figure out very quickly if any guy is ready. Mm-hmm. A guy could be very recently out of a divorce and he may be really ready. And another guy, may have been divorced for many years and he's so, scared and he's never processed his pain. And so he wouldn't be ready, but our course shows them how to do that very quickly.
Right.
How to date them, how to get clear on what they need to look for in a partner, how to tell if a man is anxious, avoidant, or secure, his attachment style. And once that man starts to attach, or she starts to attach to the man, how to trigger his attachment very quickly, whether he's recently divorced, he's been divorced for 30 years, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, that's what the course does. Yeah. It doesn't matter. We can sit here and talk forever about, I love the part that we just shared about a man being what a man goes through. But the idea on a date is how to sit across from that particular man and be able to tell if he's ready or not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's really what matters.
Yeah.
Isn't that amazing?
And a lot has to do with how he shows up.
Yeah.
Is he love bombing? Is he talking a lot about his ex, whether it's adoration or resentment? And if he is, if there's still a lot of bitterness or a lot of longing in the relationship, that will interfere. If he's moving too quickly, if he wants to initiate sexual relationships way, way, way too soon, all these things. And it's one of the reasons we encourage women, whether they're dating a divorced man or separated or widowed man or not, to date multiple people, at least 3, because it's so easy, particularly if a man is love bombing, just making the proclamation, I've never met a woman like you, I can, I want to take you on a vacation, I want to take you here. Maybe after their second date, he's saying these things.
But and that can happen with a guy who's recently divorcing or a guy who has been divorced for 30 years. I mean, any guy can love bomb and be avoidant.
Right.
That's really the most important thing to remember here. Yes, men coming out of divorces or breakups or whatever are, men coming out of divorces or breakups or any kind of separation, whatever, it's all fresh, right? Yeah. And they may still be processing or in the depths of it, but we don't know. Mm-hmm. We don't know. I mean, one guy could come out of that and go, I get it. Mm-hmm. I get it. I know what I want. Maybe he went to therapy. I know men who go through a breakup and go to therapy. Yeah. You've done that. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm grateful for the breakups in that.
You got me.
I got you.
Babe.
But it got me into therapy more than once, and which was life-changing. So the pain of the breakup led to something really, really good in my life. Really understanding myself in a way that I never could have if it weren't for the pain that said, I need help.
Wow.
I really need help right now.
And you were willing to get vulnerable and ask for it. Go seek it out, which is hard for a man to do.
Yeah.
Hard. Yeah. I have so much respect for you. I really do. But one of the things that makes it a dream to be in a relationship with you is how well you know yourself. I love that about you. I do. I think it's such a rare quality, and the way how well you know who you are, it's breathtaking. But yeah, and the time that you've spent with yourself, committed to getting to know yourself, that's something that, gosh, so few of us really delve that deeply. And for like 8 years, you did solid work.
Well, actually, much more than that over the years.
Yeah, over the years. But I mean, with Robert, you did, you did 8 years of group therapy and individual therapy. But I think you loved him so much as a you found a mentor that you just loved talking to. I think you enjoyed going to see him, and just hang out with him. Yeah, that's so beautiful. God, the world of a man is amazing. And the more I think about you and I hear about your life, it's just incredible. I think what I'm getting from our conversation, and it's funny because I learn, I examine as we're talking my own prejudices, my own beliefs and whatever. And I think it's very easy to pigeonhole and create a cliche or an assumption about men who are coming out of breakups, any kind of, break apart of a relationship. But I think there's just a million different stages that any one man or any one person could be in. And I don't think we can assume. We can say, by and large, knowing the nature of men, they don't process things, they bury their feelings, and there will be a disproportionate number of men coming out of a loss of a relationship that are going to be wounded and damaged and burying their feelings. But that there are probably some really good men who learn from those experiences and may be very well more ready than other men.
Yeah. And I think that it's important for a woman sitting across from a man to really understand as much as she can understand,
Right.
because he may not be very clear where he is. He may have that ambivalence, to find out where he is, what he wants. And one way not to do this is with direct questions, like, what was the relation? What went wrong with the relationship? And the guy could just feel pinned to the wall. So a woman could share if she's been divorced or if she's come out of a long relationship. And most of us have had a relationship or relationships where it's been difficult, coming out of it, in the relationship and after. That by beginning to share her own vulnerability, that may allow the man to come forward and share his experiences. And so it's not like...
Can I say, can we put a frame around that for a second? For women? So I really want you to get that what Benjamin's saying is, we want a list of questions. We want to dig and we want to figure it out fast. And, it's almost like men can feel we're on this mission, and it's going to feel off-putting. You're going to push them away with those questions.
Yeah.
And the best way is for you to get vulnerable, to share something from your own experience.
Right. Because I think if man is asked questions, that he's going to either give very superficial answers or relive the bitterness and the pain of loss or the longing
or tell her what she wants to hear.
Yeah.
That's a big one. Yeah.
So if a woman shares from her heart, it allows a man to share in a very different way than answering interview questions. Like if a woman says, I felt, like after the relationship, I just sat and watched TV and had a, relationship with Ben and Jerry, for several months. And a man could say, God, that's, I just binge watched old episodes of, whatever it was. And because I just didn't want to go out, I didn't know what to do. And I just wanted to isolate. And, it just brings that bonding, those shared experiences.
And I also want to tell you, there's something really important I think that we need to talk about here. A man is going to open up, and if you really hear the things a man may tell you, a lot of women don't want to hear male vulnerability. They don't want to hear, oh, it was so awful, I sat in front of the TV and just watched reruns. A lot of women, are looking for these cliche, masculine, I got it together, whatever. If a man opens up, he is going to probably share some things that many women aren't prepared to hear and may label as weakness rather than strength and vulnerability. Be very careful of doing that. Very careful. If you, and I'm saying this, if you want a man to open up to you and share his heart and really tell you what goes on inside of him, you may hear some things that are going to be heartbreaking and hard to hear because they don't go along with your stereotyped ideas of what it is to be a man. this man is more man than anybody I've ever known in my life. And he shares the most beautiful, deep, real things with me. And I make room for that. I make room all the time because I love him. And I know that to be a man is hard. It's really hard to be a man. And they have to bury themselves and they have to put on a front and a facade. And to have a woman who can really create a space for a man like you to open up, babe. I mean, that's a miracle, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's such a gift. It's such a gift. And that relationship can begin with the first date. You know,
as it did with us.
Yeah, we were very open and vulnerable our first date, and it led to the second, and it led to the next almost 20 years. Yeah, and a man may need to titrate his emotions.
Right.
So, you know, just asking what went wrong or how do you feel or all of this may be too much to ask because it's a huge thing. And there's so much complexity to the feeling and to the answer that, you know, it may be just little things and also almost like pieces of a puzzle that you just wait for another piece to put in another piece rather than trying to get the whole puzzle solved.
Yeah, women want the whole puzzle. Yeah. And by the way, that like wanting to get it solved and the whole puzzle and stuff, that is very masculine energy. Like that is the exact opposite of what Benjamin's saying. He's saying open up, share your own from your own vulnerability and your own heart. That is feminine. That is being feminine. And that is the kind of space that creates this beautiful, you know, garden, this beautiful, magical garden that a man can walk into and meet us there and open up his heart. Yeah. But when he feels like, well, what, you know, what happened and how long was the relationship and why did you stay so long and how come you didn't get out sooner and, you know, when did you know that you should have left? Can you hear those questions? I mean, they just, I feel like that.
And seeing how when a woman shares her vulnerability, how it's received and how it's responded to. And if the man stays closed, well, this may be a man who needs some healing, you know, needs some time, may need some processing, some therapy, whatever it is. If he's not able to share even a portion of what he feels. If he comes across and says, you know, like if a woman asks, you know, well, what was your relationship? Oh, it was terrible, that, you know, and gives a very two-dimensional or even one-dimensional answer. Well, that may be indicative of the guy, of you know,
where he's at.
Yeah, where he's at or where he's been. And it could have even been the reason the relationship broke up.
Right. And you don't want to go in being his therapist either. That's another thing a lot of women do. You know, we see a wounded man and it brings out our nurturing side, the part of us that wants to help and help heal and, you know, be the, just nurture him. And that's a big thing. You want to avoid that trap. The other thing I want to throw out there that I think is super important, that's not a word I use very often. But I think it's very important as women, you know, women, again, wanting to check off those boxes. There's another way that you can do this without questions. You can be in your head with a list of questions, not that you're asking the guy, but boxes that you're checking off. And you can be very quick to dismiss a man. Mm-hmm. So a man, you know, if you've only gone on a few dates and he's talking to you about his ex or whatever, and you immediately assume, why did he bring it up? And, he's not healed. And then you start making up this story in your head about where this man is at. That's not good either, because he may be opening up and sharing what's most present for him, and trying to connect with you through honesty and authenticity. And you may just think, oh, he's not over his ex. It's too soon to talk about that. Why is he bringing it up? I don't want to listen to this. And then label him and miss out on a great guy. So my suggestion would be, instead of just assuming, going to him and saying, hey, our date, we had it was lovely getting to know you. And I just wanted to check in with you. I noticed that you were talking a lot on our first date about your ex. And I don't know if you just wanted to share with me what happened, or if, you feel like maybe you're not ready to date yet, that this is really something that you need time to still process. But I was curious, where you're at with all of that. And then sit back and see what he says and let him tell you.
Yeah, that, or even something more subtle.
Simpler.
Yeah.
Less words is always better, ladies.
Yeah, it may be just something that I think that a man coming out of a relationship can be very defensive, because he's probably very defensive in the relationship, very defensive in the breakup, or the if it was a divorce or a long-term relationship breaking up, and again may feel like a failure, may feel shame, may feel like he didn't have the tools or the insight, and not sure if he has them now, what will be different.
So what would a woman do in that situation? Like, let's say I went on a date and I really liked you, but I was concerned because you were fairly recently out of a breakup, and I didn't know. And you did talk more than a little bit about your relationship and your ex. And I'm wondering, are you really ready to date?
Well, one reason a man may talk about his past relationship and and his ex, is that he may be trying to explain to the woman that he's not still attached. So he may, just say, yeah, we had a rough go of it, and this happened and that happened, and we were young, or we just weren't ready, or these situations happened. And he may be talking about it to kind of clear the field and say, and now I'm a different person, or this is a different situation.
So, honey, tell me, but as a woman, what would I say if I were thinking, I walked away from that date going, God, like that was too much too soon, and why did he tell me that? What would I say and I mean, a lot of women would just say, oh, he's not ready. They'd call their girlfriend and say, God, he talked about his ex all night and, whatever. But there's this thing inside me that's like, I don't know though. God, he's so handsome. I really liked him.
Well, I think that being the opposite of confrontational. So if a man is talking about his ex, whatever it is, with longing, with resentment, just, for a woman to say, boy, I've had breakups too, and I've felt, resentful after some, longing for some, ex-partners. And it takes a while. And I remember thinking about it and being on the forefront of my mind, during the day, throughout the day. Do you think about this a lot? So sharing part of herself without really asking a direct confrontation. Are you
God, that was so much better than what I said. Thank you very much for that. That was really lovely.
Yeah.
That was perfect.
Yeah. I think a key is for a woman to share her vulnerability, see how it's received, see how it's responded to.
Yeah.
And if it lands like a lead brick, well, this may not be your guy. He
Yep.
just may not be ready, and he may never be ready, unless he
Wow.
has some growing up and learning to do. Yeah.
And a lot of this really has to do, there's a combination of factors when a woman is sitting across from a man on a date. There are a combination of things that she needs to be looking for, or listening for. She needs to have a list of what she knows she needs in a partner. Mm. She has to know how to identify a man's attachment style, if he's anxious, avoidant, or secure, because it won't matter if he's coming out of a relationship or if he's been out for years. I mean, they can be avoidant, doesn't matter. Yeah. And then she needs to be dating several men at once and not be jumping into anything with any one guy, just because he's saying all the right things in the beginning. And she's got to learn how to move forward and, ask for what she wants and needs, and then sit back and see how the man responds to her requests.
Yeah. And begin to see some red flags.
Yeah.
Maybe they're not deal breakers, but things just to file away that, and not to blame herself if he begins to blow hot and cold. If he comes on strong and then pulls away. It is crazy making. It is crazy making when a man comes on strong and compliments a woman, and a woman may never have felt this way.
And not to minimize that when it starts to happen, to not think, that like he was just having a bad day or whatever. Right. Notice those things, pay attention to to those moments and start looking at the frequency of that.
We've seen it so often that a guy can come on strong.
Yep.
And then, just blowing hot, and then get cool.
Ice cold.
Or ice cold.
Yeah.
And
like that.
And then a woman begins to strategize like, well, maybe I did this, or maybe I could do that, or maybe I could be this way with him. And it's crazy. She begins to lose herself.
Right.
And begins to, instead of being in a relationship, it's chasing after a relationship.
Yeah. And if you pay attention to these subtleties and you do not sweep them under the rug, you will start, ladies, quicker and quicker to see who that man really is sitting in front of you. And one of the things, we're digressing a bit here, but one of the things that you really need to pay attention is your level of need. Because depending on how needy you are or how, desperate you are to fill that place, that man-shaped hole in your life, you are going to make excuses for this man. And it's very important to understand that when you're on this journey now, right now, in this moment, you want to make a commitment to yourself that it is far better to catch those things quickly and let go of these men fast and start dating the more secure ones, because you can see those signs very quickly. If you really pay attention to them, they're there. People can't hide who they are. They can only put on an act for so long. So whether, again, he's recently divorcing, or he's widowed, or he just got out of a relationship, or he's been out of one for some years, the bottom line is you are going to have to sit across from that man and be able to tell if his heart is open, if he is available, if he is ready for what you're ready for. And if you're ready for that, right? If your heart is open, if you're available and you're not rushing in and you're not needy. So that's really what our course does. We can sit all day long and talk about the hazards of dating this type of guy or that type of guy. But at some point in your life, you're going to have to be able to sit across from a man and see if he is the guardian of your soul. Mm-hmm. All right. Wow. That was great. High five, babe. Time flew. Thank you for doing this. I really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. I enjoy it.
I know you do. I know you do. You wouldn't say that if you didn't. All right. This has been Getting Inside the Right Male Mind. Thank you so much for joining us. If you enjoyed this, please go sign up for my weekly podcasts. There are 2 of them. That is at dwdpod@lisashield.com. You can go to wherever you get your favorite podcast. Please like it, rate us, subscribe, tell your friends about it. It's so important that we really spread the word and get people listening to these podcasts. And even more importantly, if you want to work with Benjamin and me, if you have any desire just to get a roadmap for finding the guardian of your soul, and you feel inspired by what you hear in these conversations, come work with us, learn from us, let us share our 19 years together with you and show you how you can have a relationship like this too. You can spend hours YouTubing and, reading books and trying to gather this information, but information is not transformation. The best way, the fastest way to get this solved is to work with great mentors and teachers and people who can show you, just take you by the hand and show you the way there. So that's what Benjamin and I do for our women, and you can be one of them. If you'd like, go to lisashield.com. You will see the link to my 45-minute presentation. Click it and sit back, enjoy, see if it resonates with you. And if it does, let's hop on a call, and I will, or a member of my team will show you how we can change your love life forever. Have a beautiful rest of your day. Bye, everybody.